start with this. Well, unbeaten prospect Lisa Whiteside took to Twitter of the comment that reads, "Get me on these shows and let's highlight good female boxing. It's all about equal opportunities. So let's not promote wannabe ladies just because they have lots of social media followings, but let's have the best boxing the best." And this was in light of the big news that Ebony Bridges is going to be fast-tracked to that Shannon Courtenay fight. It's bittersweet, poetic justice almost, because originally it was actually Ebony Bridges' title shot.
By way of the WBA.
Ebony was all set to fight Rachel, then Ebony got injured.
Pulled out.
Bridges versus Ball turned into Courtenay versus Ball. Then
Got sick.
Ball ended up getting COVID-19, thus it turned into Bridges versus Courtenay. But from the very beginning, it was actually Ebony Bridges' title shot.
Ebony Bridges, who Lisa Whiteside wants a crack at.
The same Ebony Bridges who, if she beats Shannon Courtenay, I don't think is going to do Lisa Whiteside any favors. I'm not against fighters calling out other fighters, prospects calling out other prospects, but there are realities to be addressed here. Lisa Whiteside, for all her quips and criticisms about Ebony Bridges, she hasn't fought in a long time. She hasn't fought since September of 2019.
It's been roughly 17, 18 months since she had a fight.
That's a problem, because that's essentially saying that Lisa, in spite of her good amateur background and her ambitions as a professional, she's not actually in line for a title shot. And given how she's been carrying on in reference to Ebony Bridges, well, let's just say I don't expect Ebony to do her any favors. If she does end up beating Shannon Courtenay, and she does end up being the WBA's 118-pound champion, let's just say it's going to take more than call-outs by way of social media to get Lisa Whiteside a shot at that title and a shot at the winner of Bridges versus Courtenay.
Lisa's not a matchroom fighter.
But Shannon Courtenay is. And if Shannon Courtenay emerges the victor in April, there's no actual obligation to give Lisa that opportunity. The same applies to Ebony Bridges. Now, Ebony, she's not a matchroom fighter, though all the same. If Ebony wins...
If she does.
If she becomes the WBA's 118-pound champion...
You think she'll give Lisa the shot out of the kindness of her heart?
Not likely. And with Lisa Whiteside having not fought since September of 2019, the real order of the day is getting her back out there as soon as possible. Lisa is managed by Sam Jones, the same Sam Jones that manages the career of heavyweight contender Joyce.
He needs to get her a fight.
I'm going to be honest. It sounds a lot like Lisa Whiteside doesn't feel that Ebony Bridges deserves the title shot that she's getting. I mean, that's the feeling that these comments leave me with. And if I'm being honest, Lisa Whiteside is in no position to talk. It's true that Ebony Bridges' quality of competition really isn't the best. It's pedestrian level, but so is Lisa Whiteside's. Her quality of competition is no better than Ebony Bridges', with the difference being that Ebony Bridges, the last 3 years, was a more active fighter. Ebony Bridges fought in 2019, fought in 2020, and she even fought this year.
At least once.
Whereas Lisa hasn't seen any action since September of 2019. So before Lisa starts worrying about what Ebony's doing, what Lisa needs to be doing is booking herself a fight, because it's not likely that Ebony's going to do her any favors. She's not actually in line for a title shot, so she needs to get in line for a title shot.
I didn't really like that wannabe comment either.
As if to say that Ebony Bridges isn't the genuine article, and I'll tell you this much. Ebony might not come from the same kind of amateur background as Lisa Whiteside or a Natasha Jonas, a Katie Taylor, those kinds of fights. She doesn't. That's understandable. Not everyone does. But what Ebony has done is raise the profile of this fight single-handedly. Used social media and her aesthetic value. She's used these things as a tool to raise her own profile and the profile of the fight, because no other fight at 118 pounds is being talked about as much as this fight is.
And that is because of Ebony.
And everyone, including Lisa Whiteside, benefits from that indirectly, because that gets not only this fight, but this division, attention that it wasn't even getting before.
So calling her a wannabe is a little harsh.
I don't really think that was fair, and I don't really think that was necessary. In lightweight news, per tweet from Michael Benson, Vasyl Lomachenko has insisted he's serious about wanting to fight Devin Haney. Either Bob can negotiate with Eddie to make the fight happen before April 2022 while I'm still with Top Rank, or I have to wait a year, get out of the contract, and then fight Haney. He also added, "We did not receive any offers from Devin Haney. In my opinion, he only remembered me after he signed the contract with Linares. He was trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. Devin, stop lying. Tell Eddie Hearn to send a contract." And there's one thing that's consistent about Vasyl Lomachenko's comments here, and it's that Devin Haney very recently took to Twitter and asked, "Where the hell is Vasyl Lomachenko?" But at the time that he did this, there were already reports circulating that he would face Jorge Linares in the future. Thus, Vasyl Lomachenko's timeline of events, the sequence, it is consistent with what we saw.
Did an offer from Matchroom go out to Top Rank?
Do you think they made the offer and maybe the people at Top Rank didn't let Vasyl Lomachenko know anything about it? Or do you think they didn't make the offer altogether and it was all just smoke and mirrors?
That's anybody's guess.
I'll tell you the truth, I'm not holding my breath to see these two guys fight anytime in the near future because Vasyl Lomachenko's name has already been tacked on to not only Masayoshi Nakatani at 135 pounds, but very recently his name was tacked on to Oscar Valdez, the newly crowned WBC champion, at 130 pounds. And both of those guys are likelier to get that fight in the near future with Vasyl Lomachenko than Devin Haney is. Vasyl Lomachenko, his own admission, says he's still under contract with Top Rank.
For the time being.
So what if the people at Matchroom actually did make an offer to have Vasyl Lomachenko fight Devin Haney, but Vasyl Lomachenko was not notified about the offer because Top Rank can't afford to lose him? They're already on their way to losing Teofimo Lopez, the undisputed lightweight champion to some, unified champion to others, at 135 pounds. What if Matchroom actually did make a hard inquiry?
But Vasyl Lomachenko and Igis Klimas weren't notified by Top Rank.
We know that for well over a year now, Eddie Hearn has been trying to get Vasyl Lomachenko over to the DAZN side of things. He wanted to do this with Anthony Crolla, Vasyl Lomachenko's then WBA mandatory challenger, and he was set to do this again with Devin, who was then Vasyl Lomachenko's WBC mandatory challenger. What he was going to try to do was push for a purse bid so that Matchroom and all their resources could place the winning bid and get Vasyl Lomachenko to cross over to their side of things
For at least one fight.
in what would be a one-off. We also know that Top Rank had an aversion to this at the time, and they likely still do, it being that
Lopez
they
stuff.
might lose Teofimo Lopez. They might lose the biggest name in the lightweight division. I'll tell you what I think. I think here today Vasyl Lomachenko is genuinely interested in facing Devin Haney because Devin Haney is in possession of an actual world title and because of the financial value the fight could represent. Lest we forget, Devin Haney's in bed with Matchroom, and everybody knows by now, Matchroom's got the bag, Matchroom's got the juice. At minimum, what you have to say is you stand to make more fighting Devin Haney than, say, fighting Masayoshi Nakatani.
I think Vasyl Lomachenko wants the fight.
I've been telling you guys for well over a year now that I don't think Vasyl Lomachenko was afraid of Devin Haney because as it stands, Devin Haney hasn't given him anything to be afraid of. And at the same time, I've been telling you guys for over a year that Devin Haney should not be lambasted for having become a world champion the way that he did, because that's more Top Rank's fault than anyone else's. Top Rank petitioned to have Vasyl Lomachenko made a franchise champion, and in effect,
They did it.
deprived Devin of what would have been the eventual opportunity to challenge him. That's Top Rank's fault, not Devin's.
I'm telling you that people are focused on the wrong thing.
I've been telling you guys for well over a year that it's not about Vasyl Lomachenko being afraid of or protected from Devin Haney, and it's not about Devin Haney being a paper champion. What it's really about is Top Rank wanting to prevent a purse bid from taking place, because they didn't want to happen with Vasyl Lomachenko what just happened with Teofimo Lopez. This is what I was trying to tell you guys about. In a purse bid situation, Matchroom might place the winning bid, and if they do, they get to watch their guy Vasyl Lomachenko
Go over there to Matchroom and be content for them.
In a purse bid situation, the people at Top Rank would have two choices. Break the bank, trying to secure the fight to ensure that the fight happens over there on ESPN, or forfeit. Let Matchroom flip the bill, but suffer the consequences of watching Vasyl Lomachenko fight on DAZN at least once. I mean, how do you think the people over there at ESPN would feel about that? How do you think the people over there at ESPN would feel towards Top Rank if they saw that one of Top Rank's star fighters is fighting on another platform as a result of Top Rank losing the purse
Where
bid?
the fuck's that guy going? He's supposed to be here drumming up ratings for us.
I mean, that's basically the situation we're watching unfold when it comes to Teofimo Lopez. The people over there at ESPN aren't happy with Top Rank that the situation worked out the way that it did. Top Rank didn't want to break the bank for Lopez versus Kambosos Jr.
We know.
Maybe they were right, maybe they were wrong, but one way or another, they didn't want to overpay for that fight. As a result of that fight going to purse bid, well, now the fight's set to take place on Triller, and the people at ESPN, those higher-ups, they're not happy about it because Teofimo Lopez is one of Top Rank's star fighters. What they want is for Teofimo to drum up ratings for them.
And he can't do that if he's fighting on some other platform.
In order to achieve some kind of reconciliation, some kind of catharsis when it comes to this entire fiasco, we'd need confirmation from Eddie Hearn that an offer went out. An offer went out from Matchroom to Top Rank in order to stage a Haney versus Vasyl Lomachenko fight. That's what we would need.
Because Vasyl Lomachenko is saying he never received one.
So if by some chance in the coming days we hear Eddie Hearn say that the news is genuine and the offer did in fact go out, and then we look over at what Vasyl Lomachenko said, that he never received anything from Matchroom, then we'll know where the inconsistency lies. Then we'll know who the odd man out is. The odd man out in that situation would be Top Rank. That perhaps the offer was sent out, but Top Rank never told Vasyl Lomachenko about it.
Because they don't want him fighting on DAZN.
He's still under contract with Top Rank, and they need him since Teofimo Lopez might be leaving very soon. One way or another, these guys aren't about to fight next. I mean, that's what's not happening, and that's what I always told you. In heavyweight news, per tweet from Alexander Usyk, Joyce's team made us an offer. The offer was unsuitable, so we made a more viable counter-offer. Joyce shouldn't think too much of himself and fall in line with everyone else. I'll be the one making the final decision. To that, Frank Warren has responded by saying that they have not received any counter-offer from Alexander Usyk's team for Joe Joyce, despite Usyk's comments. Warren said, "We made an offer to your manager again last week. Joe wants this fight. It sounds like you want this fight. Let's get this fight made." First things first, I think what we need to understand, what needs to be said, is that I don't think that Usyk is afraid of Joe, and I don't think that Joe is afraid of Usyk. I think that if this fight hasn't been made official yet, it has everything to do with the purses. One must understand that BT Sport, Queensberry, they're nowhere near as big an outfit as Matchroom, and they don't have all the resources that Sky Sports and DAZN have.
They don't.
That being said, this isn't a Matchroom, Sky Sports, and DAZN issue. It's my understanding that Usyk is no longer under contract with Matchroom. Thus, it's up to Queensberry, it's up to old Fish Eyes to make the fight happen.
Usyk says he sent Joe an offer.
Usyk says he sent Joe a counteroffer. Frank Warren said no such offer was received. What's going on here? What's getting lost in translation? What's not happening that needs to happen? And what's the nature of the problem? The nature of the problem here is that in all likelihood, Alexander Usyk made more fighting Derek Chisora than Joe Joyce made fighting Daniel Dubois. The issue here is that Usyk is supposed to get the lion's share of the pot, and he's accustomed to being paid a certain way. A way that, Frank Warren's fighters...
Well...
I mean, let's be honest. You don't get with Frank what you get with Eddie.
Right now, it's up to Frank to make the fight.
Right now it is. But you have to remember that this fight was ordered by the WBO. This is an interim title fight. And because this fight was ordered, I imagine it's got a deadline, and I imagine that once that deadline is reached, it'll go up to a purse bid. If and when it does go to purse bid, then Eddie Hearn can swoop in with his Matchroom wallet and put in a bid for the fight, a bid that could very well be in excess of what Frank and BT are willing to pay for the fight.
Last month, Eddie Hearn said that this fight is likely to go to purse bid.
And perhaps this is why. Perhaps it's because underneath it all, he knows that Frank Warren can't finance the kind of fight that Usyk is looking for. He can't pay Usyk the way Usyk is accustomed to being paid. There's a very big difference between what goes on at Matchroom and what goes on at Queensberry.
There's a very big difference in how these fighters are paid.
With the announcement of Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury putting the ink to the paper for what is to be their fight, a contract that is set to expire in less than 30 days, 26 or 27 by my count. With that news having broken, that puts more pressure on this fight to be made, on this fight to be finalized.
I searched high and low for a deadline.
I searched high and low for a time frame, a window of opportunity, a grace period, the grace period for the Usyk people and the Joyce people to reach a deal before this fight goes to a purse bid, because in all likelihood, it will. It's just a question of when. If they can't situate terms between them, if agreeable terms cannot be reached, this being a mandated title fight for an interim title, This being a fight that the WBO ordered...
If they don't come to terms within a certain time frame, it goes to purse bid.
And therein lies a dilemma for the Usyk people. Alexander Krassyuk might look at the situation with Joe Joyce as being interchangeable with a Joshua fight when it's not. You're under orders. Your fighter is under orders to fight Joe Joyce. So what happens if he doesn't fight Joe Joyce? Does he keep his interim status as the WBO's mandatory challenger?
If he doesn't comply with that order, does he keep that status?
Or does he forfeit that status to Joe Joyce if the fight doesn't happen? That's the question. The situation has been treated as if the Joshua Fury announcement must be made first in order to then make the announcement for this fight, when that's not the case. Those are separate fights.
They both are.
And separate situations. The WBO is ordering Alexander Usyk to defend his position as their mandatory challenger against their highest-ranked contender. That's what's going on. I don't even know that he can move forward without fighting Joe Joyce.
I think the fight is going to happen.
For what it's worth, if you want to know what I think, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do, in all likelihood, Frank isn't going to be able to pay Usyk the kind of money that he normally makes. It's very hard to imagine Usyk crossing that street and going over there to BT Sport to have this fight. I think the likeliest scenario is the fight going to a purse bid and Matchroom subsequently placing the winning bid. The fight taking place under the Sky Sports Matchroom banner, DAZN here in the United States. I think that's what's likelier to happen than not, and I think the fight is going to happen, I do, because Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury have entered into a 2-fight deal. In order for Usyk to keep his position so that he gets to challenge the winner of that fight,
he's got to fight Joe first.
He's under orders. He's under orders from the same sanctioning body that so empowers him to even get that title shot. That being said, the fight has to happen, and because it has to happen, I think it will happen. But I think, before it does, it's going to a purse bid.